Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Konrad Gorlinski and this is the news. The Polish border guard announced today that 46 attempts to illegally cross into Poland were recorded in the past 24 hours. The violent attacks on the Polish border fence and the border guard defending it have weakened in intensity in recent days, but smaller attacks still take place on a daily basis along the entire stretch of the Polish-Belarusian border. A video posted on Twitter on Friday by the Polish border guard shows a group of migrants attempting to tear down the razor wire fence at the Poland-Belarus border. Alexander Lukashenko, who denies the allegations that he fomented the crisis, is trying to pressure the EU to accept some migrants in exchange for Belarus repatriating others. Belarus said on Friday it would retaliate after the United States and its allies imposed sanctions against dozens of individuals and entities there, and it complained that its economy was facing unprecedented external pressure. The crisis on the Belarusian border, involving thousands of migrants from Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, and elsewhere, all hoping to get into the European Union, has dragged on for months. The Polish border guard recorded 8,900 attempts to illegally cross the border into the country just in the month of November. Poland and the EU accuse Lukashenko of encouraging the migrants to travel to Belarus and cross the border illegally as revenge for sanctions imposed on Minsk over human rights abuses. Belarus denies the charge and says the EU is to blame for the humanitarian crisis on the border. The leadership of Austria's ruling Conservative Party, OVP, has picked Interior Minister Karl Nehammer as the party's next leader and the country's next chancellor. The decision comes at a stormy time in the party and is likely to lead to snap elections. Nehammer, a 49-year-old former soldier, has been the enforcer of outgoing party leader Sebastian Kurz's hard line on immigration. Kurz said a day earlier he was quitting politics, prompting his ally, Chancellor Alexander Schallenberg, to say he too would step down. Nehammer also said on Friday he had chosen party official Magnus Brunner to be the next finance minister. I'm pleased to inform you that today I've been unanimously appointed by the party executive of the New People's Party as the acting federal party chairman, and at the same time as the candidate for the federal chancellor in the upcoming consultations with the federal president Alexander Van der Bellen. Brunner, a junior minister in the Environment Ministry, will succeed Gernot Blumel, who said on Thursday he would resign after his close ally Sebastian Kurz quit as party leader. It's a great honor for me personally that I've been granted this vote of confidence, that I may now experience the chairmanship for the People's Party. I say this quite deliberately because the People's Party as a movement has been one that has always fascinated me, and it is indeed a privilege for me to now be allowed to lead this new People's Party. The current Chancellor, Alexander Schallenberg, will return to his old job of foreign minister. Ukraine's defense minister, Alexei Reznikov, addressed the Ukrainian parliament today with information that Russia could be ready for a full-scale invasion of Ukraine by the end of January. MPs were also presented with some alarming information from the latest intelligence reports. According to the Ukrainian intelligence agency, Russia has massed more than 94,000 troops near Ukraine's borders. Our intelligence analyzes all scenarios, including the worst. It notes that the likelihood of a large-scale escalation from Russia exists. The most likely time to reach readiness for an escalation will be the end of January. The defense minister stated that Ukraine would not do anything to provoke the situation, but was ready to fight back if Russia launched an attack. Ukraine is interested in political and diplomatic scenarios of settling the conflict. There can be no military provocations from our side. At the same time, a way of appeasement of the aggressor is not considered as possible. If needed, Ukraine will fight back. The minister also confirmed that Ukraine is pressing ahead with the construction of 2 naval bases on its south coast. One base will be located in Ochakiv, to the west of the Crimean Peninsula, annexed by Russia in 2014, and the other in Berdyansk, to the east of Crimea. Among the priorities are the missile program and the development of the fleet. We're moving on to the practical stage of building 2 military bases in Berdyansk and Ochaki, and other contracts within the framework of our agreements with the United Kingdom. Ukraine and its NATO allies have sounded the alarm about Russian troop movements near Ukraine's borders this year, sparking worries that a simmering conflict in eastern Ukraine could erupt into an open war. Ukraine's ties with Russia collapsed in 2014 after Russia invaded and annexed parts of eastern Ukraine. And finally, Mexican migrant shelters have stated that they could be overwhelmed by an influx of asylum seekers next week when the United States resumes a Trump-era program to return them to Mexico. The situation has been caused by a decision from U.S. federal courts that might anger many Democrat voters. U.S. President Joe Biden had tried to end the policy as part of a more humanitarian approach to migration, but federal courts ordered a reboot of the so-called migrant protection protocols, which require asylum seekers to wait in Mexico for U.S. immigration hearings. The returns will likely begin Monday, December 6th at a single border crossing and eventually expand to a total of 7. Shelter directors said that could spark an influx of people to their facilities at a time of record migration from Latin America and the Caribbean. I believe that right now we will not be able to attend to more migrants in the shelter. Perhaps others will. Most of the shelters on the Tijuana border are at 90% capacity. The coronavirus pandemic had already forced many shelters to reduce capacity. Local officials also expressed concern about where funding will come from to absorb migrants waiting for U.S. hearings. Both U.S. and Mexican officials said the United States will address Mexico's humanitarian concerns about the revamped program. Still, progressive human rights advocates say the policy exposes migrants to serious risks.
We're deeply disappointed by the resumption of this program here at the southern border because we know what it means for people on the move. Migrants, asylum seekers, and the most vulnerable among us are going to be put into this program once again, which is actually being expanded to include many more nationalities than the original program during the Trump administration. We know this will cause harm, both physical and potentially psychological, on the people on the move, as well as challenges when it comes to their access to due process in immigration courts.
Since the program began in 2019, tens of thousands of people have been sent back to Mexican border cities, where many waited months and sometimes years in makeshift camps or bare-bones shelters without access to jobs or schools. As usual, thanks for tuning in with us this evening. I hope you stick around for Poland Daily Business, Poland Daily Weather, and other programs. But for me, it's have a wonderful weekend.